All right, let's find out what's happening in the world of rural real estate. Of course, we do that with the team at Property Brokers, and the GM of Rural there is Conrad Wilkshire. He joins us now. Conrad, how are you?
Good, thanks, Dom. I'm actually busy ensconced in the Christchurch airport, so if there's a few ding-dongs, that's where I am at. Mind you, I haven't had any, but sure as eggs is eggs. If I take this call now, we'll get 5 in a row.
Of course, exactly. So you're heading to paradise, aren't you? You're going through to Wanaka.
Yeah, good old Central, yes, very much so. And we got our sort of rural meeting down there, and got the guys coming in from the South Island. So now looking forward to catching up with them.
Well, if I wasn't working 7 days a week, I'd join you. But it's the way it goes these days, pal.
Yeah.
Interestingly, though, it's sort of having a look at what's going on at the moment. I know that you've been looking around what's happening in the hill country market, but also with dairy sales as well. You've had your head under the bonnet there. What are you seeing out there at the moment?
Well, Dom, I was interested to have a check and just seeing year on year to end of April just what the dairy market's done this year. And it's actually operating at a similar number of sales. It's about 260 sales, 20 hectares and up this year. Now, that's for about $1.4 billion worth of dairy real estate. Now, that is up about $400 million on the prior year. So that's significant. But actually the number of sales is similar. So you've seen the median price continue to track up at 32,000 a hectare to about 42,000 a hectare. So that's it's a big shift year on year, and it's a vindication for the dairy sector as well. So that's a really good news story. And then of course you have some interesting stories that sit inside of that, because I always like to have a look at some of the regions that offer real value, and I have a look at the Northland and I look at the West Coast, and you've got, substantial amounts of sales happening in both those provinces, and their sales, the dairy median price is closer to 20,000 a hectare. In fact, and it's actually only modestly up on the prior year. So, but the sales are there. So there's over about 34 sales across both those provinces. So there's some, if you look at those prices around 18 to 20,000 a hectare range, you've got forestry almost bidding up to that level these days. So it just shows you there's definitely value out there for particularly those looking for their first farm. And, I'd probably start with that.
Yeah, very interesting. So that's what they're selling for in those particular regions per hectare. But what did you say? What was that figure you mentioned? 42,000 a hectare in terms of the average? Yeah,
across the whole country.
Yeah.
So it's about half. And I know I've got a lot of good farming friends that successfully farm and have done for decades up in the north, and they probably won't appreciate me sharing all this because they're not looking to pay too much more for their next block, and they've actively expanded their businesses over the years. But value for money, and the payout's the same in all the regions, and obviously Westland now is benchmarked against Fonterra. So there are definitely opportunities, no question about it. And obviously on the West Coast, I can pretty much guarantee rainfall, and but also while you might say the North has had a few droughts of late, it's pretty hard to say that's limited to the North, because you've had the Deep South with a very dry season, and Waikato's been extremely dry. And so I think, ultimately, they run reasonably low stocking rates, very lean cost structures, and, there's some very successful dairy businesses up there. So it's just interesting to me we haven't seen the recovery in those markets to the extent that I would have thought, given the disparity between the national average, which is almost 2 times.
Yeah, they're quite extraordinary figures, actually, when you drill down into that. So 260 sales so far this year, and that's about $1.4 billion in terms of sales, up $400 million. And as you say, that average hectare price of $42,000. So that's the state of play as we have it so far this year in 2022. What else is happening in the rural real estate market? Other points of interest, Conrad?
Yeah, look, there's always plenty going on. Looking at the sheep and beef sector, pastoral sector, we would look at that, again, similar volumes of sales, but closer to almost 500 million up year on year. And so again, we've seen some changes there. Interestingly, the median price at 22,000 hectare, which includes all the finishing country, has probably stayed the same year on year. But where we've seen the big shift is something I've spoken about in the past, is that the 200 hectare larger pastoral operations, that we've gone from 8.7 8,750 per hectare to 11,500 hectare.
Wow.
About 3,000 hectare increase on those extensive farms, and that's running through. And again, so on similar numbers of sales. So this, like I know there's a perception that a lot of countries shifting to alternative land uses, but actually the number of sales aren't that different year on year, but the value's definitely different.
Conrad Wilkshire from Property Brokers. Enjoy Wanaka, my friend. I'm sure you will. It'll turn on a beauty for you.
Okay, thanks, Dom. And any listeners wanting to head north, we can help them pretty smartly. So thanks for that.